Thank you for listening to the Business and Beyond podcast.
We appreciate all of our listeners. If this is your first time listening to the Business and Beyond podcast, we hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome to episode 52 of the Business and Beyond podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Raze Energy Drinks. You visit razesports.com, use promo code BusinessBeyond. As you can see, a little different today. I am not joined by Ashton. I'm flying solo, so we'll see how this goes. Maybe all the internet Karens out there can critique me there. So, Ashton's out. He's under the weather, and it makes me think: is the COVID protocols that we're following today, are we doing the best job we can with that, or are we leaving something else there on the table, or are we doing everything we can? I kind of feel like we're doing everything we can. This is something probably everyone's going to get. Everyone will end up contracting this version of it, Omicron. My household dealt with it last week, and I don't think there's anyone that I don't know that isn't dealing with it right now. But as business owners, what do we do to combat that? Is additional cleaning, sanitizing? Are we business as usual pre-COVID, and we're not worrying about it too much? I know my wife works for a local school district, public school district, and they're in there for the most part. They're business as usual. Field trips, everything's open. They are having significantly higher numbers now, going into cold and flu season. Even just in general, people are sick. The CDC recently had changed the quarantine period from 10 days to 5 days. And I think now it's 5 days, and then a negative test is what they recommend. A lot of businesses were still the 10 days. I think in some scenarios they are 10 days. In some scenarios they're allowing just a 5-day quarantine period. So we have that to look at and continue to follow. Hopefully we get through this cold and flu season, though. We're going to see a drastic drop in not only COVID cases, but just, the general population being sick. So, that's something we're going to continue to watch, and we'll revisit this more as the year goes on. But, some other things that we're going to be looking at too and dealing with is, along with all the COVID issues, which COVID from 2020 kind of pushed us into, is are we seeing the peak of inflation now? Have we finally hit that peak, or are we going to continue to see the growth? I think recent reports as of last month, to be December of 2021, used car prices were inflated 12 to 13%. As a report as of earlier today, those were down to an increase of about 3 to 4%. So that is a good sign. We're seeing inflation kind of back off a little bit. I mean, if you were wanting to sell a used vehicle, you might want to hurry up and get that done before we are hopefully back in the sweet spot we'd like to be. But even just an increase in 3 or 4% isn't a bad thing, and we're seeing that market soften a little bit. The used cars aren't just flying off the shelves. You're even seeing new vehicles now. Some of the car dealerships are starting to be able to stock up with new inventory. You can see one area we are starting to see, and that we will continue to monitor, is grocery. Not only supply, but grocery prices. They are continually on the rise. Most of you, I'm sure, if you've gone to a grocery store, you've seen some items. Where I tend to shop, they're not wiped out, but it's kind of hit or miss what you can get. Your selections is much lower than what it typically would be. And we hope that, even going into the winter weather, we dealt with this last year here in North Texas, that people freaked out and bought, an influx of toilet papers and bread and milk and food, and just wiped the stores out. And we really haven't seen that replenishment in great values. In some instances, but I know people in the in the industry that they're saying at the local grocery stores they're seeing it's hit or miss if they get trucks. My kids love to take Lunchables for their school lunches. Sometimes you can find them, sometimes you can't find them. Sometimes they're out of Lunchables, and even when they do have them, you kind of whatever they have is what you get. So that's something too we're gonna have to keep an eye on all around through grocery. And your beef prices are up. But one interesting trend I did see doing a little research is with beef prices up, the beef sales were down about 12% overall, and you're seeing consumers purchasing isn't really on the decline. It's what they're purchasing. So people are valuing what their income is, because unfortunately the income isn't increasing at the rate of inflation. So we're seeing a big trend in people moving away from the higher priced products that you typically would buy, like beef, which has been on the rise. They're finding other alternatives to that. So that's something else we wanna watch, and hopefully this all balances itself out. But kind of brings us back to the topic at hand: is have we seen the peak of inflation? Are we hopefully on a downward slide, so to say, and this probably will tie in and correlate directly with COVID and what we see with COVID numbers. So hopefully with those COVID numbers dropping, we can also see inflation drop with that, and hopefully consumer, you know, sales continue to rise and boost and really continuing our economy. It hasn't dropped tremendously. Sales are up. There was all-time highs through the holiday season. Consumer sales. So we hope that this is going to be kind of the trend we're going to start to see with inflation dropping. Hopefully, COVID cases dropping, and we can kind of get back to maybe pre-COVID normal for us. I know a lot of us have adapted to a new normal, but hopefully finding a new that old normal that we're used to, and we can can kind of continue the growth that we're having, especially for small businesses. This has been a tough time for all businesses. My business, you've really had to work hard. I've seen a lot of businesses succeed through this as well, and that's a great thing. I mean, we're great to see that. We're glad that we've had some personal connections with a lot of businesses that have grown. We hope that through this show we've been able to motivate as well. They're motivating us to keep going. That they're excited to see the information that we're trying to help bring out, and kind of bring some of the bigger business trends, bring some of that information down to the small businesses, and create a path or a bridge, a conduit there where these guys can use this information on a smaller scale and hopefully build their businesses. A lot of small businesses, entrepreneurs, they're not big business majors. They're gaining their knowledge in the streets. They're learning it day in, day out, working, which in my opinion is better. Getting your hands dirty, learn on the fly. Sometimes you can be over taught. Sometimes the schools don't do a good job of teaching you, and when life hits you in the mouth, sometimes you don't know how to react, and we see that a lot. And a lot of times those are the businesses that end up failing because they haven't had to struggle through it. They've had it pretty easy. They jump in, they know it all from the books, but the books don't always correlate directly into the field, as all entrepreneurs know that this is it's a different animal, man. You can't, and there's no one way to do it all. There's the right way for you, but that's not always the right way for everyone else. So, but with our small businesses succeeding this year, we're super grateful that we've been able to succeed. We're so happy to be able to watch others succeed and continue to grow. And we're still early, 2022. Um, you know, the rest of this first quarter is going to be very interesting. I really feel that by the second quarter, where it's going to be lights out. I mean, we're just going to be rolling. Things are going to be what I feel like is going to be more back to normal than we've realized in the past. And in another, kind of interesting thing that we've seen through all this is our workforce, the or lack thereof recently. Um, and I know we've mentioned it several times. We've talked about this, that the increase in new businesses and new registered businesses is up tremendously the past year. And through COVID, we kind of saw that trend where you had a lot of people either working from home or losing their jobs, so they started businesses at home, whether they're small home-based businesses, or some people went all in, bought equipment. They you know they bet the bank on it. They put it all in, and it's that's a good thing, but in turn, it's also taken away from our general workforce, and some of that, could due to the over push for school, for kids going to universities, and maybe in some cases not even having a major per se. They really don't know what they want to do. They just go to school because I have to go to school. When when there was a really push for trades, and trade licensed electricians, plumbers, landscape irrigators, these things that need licenses, and you go to these trade or vocational schools, you know one, through early 2020 when this pandemic hit, those were the people that were still working. They weren't the people that lost their jobs at all. And now that's where the greatest need for these workers is in the construction fields, in these trade fields that are specialized. So, is that part of our issue? Is that, I know growing up as a kid, I mean, that was the big push, is you got to go to college, you got to go to college, and if you were to ask for what, well, just because you have to go to college. You're not successful if you don't go to college. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I can tell you, I can name 5 very successful businesses with business owners that either went through vocational school or none at all. They just got out and started hustling and working and building business, building relationships. They didn't allow the system to drag them in. Now, for anyone that knows exactly what they want to do, and there are certain fields that there's absolutely a degree required, and there's a lot of school knowledge that is required for that. Absolutely, you have to, but you have to know what you want to do. And if you're speaking to high schoolers, for sure, figure out what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, don't just jump off and go to college for no reason, because you see kids going through and they spend all this time and money on classes that they end up retaking or taking additional, or things that they're taking things that didn't even do anything for them, or they come out with degrees that they, one, end up abandoning later, or 2, they get stuck in a pandemic when, hey, you know what, we don't need this anymore. This is a position that isn't required, we don't need. So make yourself, what I like to say is, make yourself recession proof. With that, whether it's your career, personally, financially especially, but always make sure you make yourself recession proof. Because I just don't think the times that we're going through and the times that we've seen, I just don't know that you get a whole lot worse than that. And if you can make it through that, or you can build a business through that, there's really nothing that can stop you or take you down. I actually am going to cut this episode a little bit shorter than typical. I'm not the long-winded one like Ashton. Hopefully he's not listening and cut that. But one thing I do want to do is I want to thank all of our subscribers to our podcast, whether it be Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, directly on Anchor, and especially our YouTube followers. We're really making a push on our YouTube page. We're looking for subscribers. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell for notifications when we post these episodes. And we want to continue to bring you guys additional content through the YouTube page. And, maybe you want to leave comments below, things you'd like to see, whether it be more reviews on products or businesses or, topics you'd like us to talk about or research. We'll continue to have interviews coming up this next year. We've got a big plan for a big slate of interviews this next year. More books to come. So we really appreciate all the subscribers now. Make sure you share this with family, friends, small business owners. We're really excited. We've said it many times this year already, but 2022 is going to be a great year, and we cannot wait to continue. So until next time, hopefully Ashton will be with us again next week, and sign off, man. We'll catch you guys next week. Thank you again for supporting the Business and Beyond podcast.
Be sure to hit the subscribe button to be alerted every time we post a new episode.